When a family member passes away, the family has to deal with many issues, deciding on a service, on the burial. A constant in the process is the fact that food will play a role during the planning and the actual funeral. In our segment, Straight Talk with the Funeral Director today, we're getting a bit of a history lesson on the role of food in funerals. And joining me today from Edwards Funeral Services is Beth Buxton. Hi, Beth. It's nice to see you.
Hi, thank you for having us.
You know, what an interesting concept. Hadn't thought about it or stepped back to think of it, but oh my gosh, food is involved in that process as soon as people understand that someone has passed away, and the neighbors start coming and people bring casseroles and things, and it's like that for most people.
It really is. It's interesting to think about the tradition of food and funerals. There's a history there, and it's evolved into modern day and how it works now.
What is some of that history? I mean, how far back are we talking?
The earliest archaeological site is 12,000 years old. It's in Israel, and it showed where someone had a burial, a funeral, and also had a feast. And the feast consisted of tortoise and cattle. And at that time, that would have been a very wealthy feast, so it shows the socioeconomic status of that person.
Why do you think food has played such a role in the funeral process, going back to, you know, biblical times?
There's a lot of reasons. One reason, of course, is to nourish the living. A lot of times back in those days, they kept the deceased on display for many days. They did that because out of respect, but they also did it to make sure that person was really dead.
Yeah, they didn't have modern medicine, I guess, like today.
Not. So they made sure that someone wasn't in a comatose state. So they also used that food in I guess, an analogy way, just to say that this would nourish that body through that eternal journey. And they used it in that manner.
It differs, though, on how people use food, as I'm finding out from you, through different countries, different cultures. Give me some examples when you say things are different depending on maybe what part of the country you're from.
It is, even modern day, like if you're from the South, you will not be cooking the day of a funeral. You will be cooked for. That will happen from neighbors, or if you have a home church, the church family will gather together and cook for you. And there's meals that they traditionally cook. That is casseroles, cakes, soups, and it varies per geographic location in the country. If you're from Manhattan, for example, you'll expect to have bagels and smoked fish. If you're from West Virginia like myself, you'll have good old home cooking, comfort foods, fattening foods, anything with French fried onions in it or maraschino cherries. That's what you'll have.
That's really interesting. I never thought about the fact that depending where you live, how it's different in how people, you know, celebrate a life. And part of that is a celebration, isn't it? Because we always associate food with a celebration, too.
We do. It happens at weddings, it happens at birthdays, holiday gatherings, and funerals. It's comforting, and it's consistent, and it's traditional. So people really do associate a funeral with the food. It's important. In the African American culture, it's very important. It's called a repast, and they expect people to come. If you're invited, it's rude not to attend. And there you'll have traditional dishes such as fried chicken, black-eyed peas, candied yams, macaroni and cheese, and collard greens.
How do you then, as a funeral director, does that affect your business and what food now means? I mean, do people bring food into the parlors? I mean, where do you come in as far as what your role that you play?
They do sometimes. People want to bring food in. They ask if it's disrespectful or inappropriate, and it's not. If they'd like to bring food in, we encourage it. We've had families bring in something as simple as sandwich trays or vegetable platters. We've had people that want to have catering done. We are not opposed to that. At times, though, a lot of the families do not want to have their meal there. They want to go to their church and have that, or another venue at a restaurant or another location.
So if someone comes to you with any kinds of ideas, you are really open at Edwards to trying to accommodate that family.
We are, and people even pre-plan that. They'll put in their advanced planning what kind of meal they want their family to have.
Well, we talk about advanced planning. Why not plan for everything, right?
That's right. Plan for your food.
Plan for your food. And it is a source of comfort for everyone to gather around that, as has always been tradition.
It has, and it also alleviates a burden from that family. They're going through a lot, they're grieving, they've had to make a lot of decisions, and they're tired. So for neighbors to come together, or a church family, or someone else to provide food, that's just another helpful chore for that family.
How interesting, and thank you for taking us back in this history tour, Beth. We appreciate that.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks.